Today I have a very special guest with me, Glenn Davis. He's the director of Virginia Energy. We're going to let him talk about everything that he does in Virginia and the great work that he does at one of our most important agencies in Virginia. And so, Glenn, thank you so much for your time. And really, almost every question that I get when I'm traveling around the Commonwealth is, what's going on with our energy prices? Why do they keep going up all the time? And so I think this will be a very instructive and informative conversation. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So why don't you share a little background just on yourself and the work that you do at Virginia Energy?
Sure. No, I've loved it. The governor asked me to come as director of the Department of Energy about 3 years ago. Prior to that, I spent 10 years in the House of Delegates. And the Virginia Department of Energy, or Virginia Energy, we have 3 offices. Southwest Virginia is our mine and mine safety office. We have our critical minerals office and geology office in Charlottesville. And of course, our state energy office and administration office out here in Richmond. About a total of 217 amazing employees, very passionate about energy. And obviously, we stay on top of all the new technologies. The governor's passion for SMRs and bringing that to Virginia, as well as solar, hydrogen, you name it. We're the party for it.
If you look across the country, it's not just in Virginia. Energy demand has skyrocketed because of AI, data centers. And so it can't just be one source or 2 sources. There are some folks in politics that only want wind and solar, which when you think about the implications of that, the sun is not always shining and the wind's not always blowing. But people need power 24/7. So there's all kinds of issues there, which we'll talk about later. But then there's this whole, traditional natural gas, coal, and then new nuclear. And so can you tell us where the industry is going when it comes to the future of generation? What's sexy? What's exciting? What are people talking about in the industry? And what do folks at home need to know about?
Well, I mean, a lot of the buzz is around advanced nuclear, small modular reactors. These are nuclear reactors that are significantly smaller than what we see today at Surrey and North Anna, where Virginia has 4 reactors today. They are much safer. The industry likes to use the term walk-away safe. Some of the technologies, they're not even pressurized reactor vessels, which is a complete change from what people are traditionally used to seeing. These are reactors that they come modular, anywhere from 77 to 300 and some megawatts a unit. And you put them in, well, in the case of a 77 megawatt unit, 12 packs, or in other cases, 4 packs.
Let's take a step back, because so if we look at the current energy mix in Virginia today, because we have 2 nuclear power plants in Virginia. That actually, what is it producing?
Well, no, 4 plants. 4 units, 2 locations, 4 units.
2 locations, but yes, 4 units within those locations. But when you look at the energy mix right now across Virginia, how much of our energy generation power comes from nuclear, comes from natural gas, comes from wind and solar? I think that would be good to first talk about before we go into where the industry is going.
So you're about 35% or so in nuclear. What surprises most people is natural gas. 55% of all the power in Virginia that we consume is natural gas power.
Wow.
It's amazing. And then it's single digits, wind and solar, as you'd expect.
It's like 5%, right? Around 5%?
Yep.
Okay.
And then, but another number that is very interesting is we import 35% of our power. We import more power into the Commonwealth of Virginia than any other state in the nation.
So then you would logically then say, well, we need to generate more power in Virginia and not import it. And so what's the cheapest form of power generation today?
So that's an interesting question, because that's what's hotly debated. I will tell you it's natural gas is the cheapest. And the reason why I'll tell you that is natural gas is 24/7, right? It's dispatchable. When we need it, we can turn it on. It's there for us. Other people will say, well, isn't solar cheaper because, well, it's free. There's no fuel. And forget the thing, you got to build it first, but you have to build natural gas. What most people don't realize is when you build an energy grid, you don't build it based on how much power you're going to use over the course of the year. You build it to your peak hours during the year. The hottest of hot days, the coldest of cold days, during peak hours.
Because you can't lose power.
Right.
That creates not just an economic crisis, but a societal.
Well, people die. We saw that in Texas, right? This is very dangerous when this happens. So when you create solar, and peak hours in Virginia is 4 to 8 p.m., and you can look out the window right now. We're 5 o'clock and sun's gone. So if you build solar, I argue that the cost of building solar is the cost of building solar plus the cost of building natural gas. because because during peak time, that solar's not there for you. And people talk about battery backups, which the technology is not where it needs to be. But
Well,
even when it does come, it's still the cost of building battery backups.
But there's also depreciation, right? Because when you build a nuclear power plant, for example, you're using that nuclear power plant for 50 to 100
Yes.
years. And so the amortization, the depreciation of that asset, is happening over 50 years. You're not having to, replace it every 3 to 5 years,
Right.
which is what's happening on the solar side.
Right. I mean,
right?
so the cost of building solar is the cost of building solar plus battery storage, or the
Right.
cost of building solar plus natural gas. But there is no reliable solar source that's going to help us during peak times.
And then the battery side, because a lot of folks that I talk to will say, oh, well, we just need more solar panel farms or fields, and then we just put batteries next to them. So why couldn't you just put a bunch of batteries around these farms so that they just capture all this energy and then you can use it at night? Would you be able to draw on that stored energy for hours on end, or how does that
So
work?
right now, people are talking 4-hour batteries.
4 hours.
4
So
hours.
if you store all of this energy, you can only keep it for 4 hours before you can't use it anymore.
Right, and you're also talking about, do you take the solar off the solar to charge the battery? Do you use it? Do you use the solar during that part of the day? Right.
Exactly.
I mean, so the whole concept is, can you generate enough solar for us to use during the peak hours of sunlight, and also charge the batteries long enough to get us through, the night? And the answer is no, not yet. I mean, you and I both know we're tech people. There's going to come a time when the technology is going to be
Will
there.
it be 5 years from now, 20 years from now?
It's 10 plus. I mean, it's
Sure.
going to be a while. I mean, we see it with computers, right? But
So to solve the energy crisis that we have right now,
right now, we got a 5 to 7 year.
be done with solar.
No, it's natural gas. Virginia is not in a vacuum when it comes to energy. We're part of a regional transmission organization called PJM.
Okay.
It's 13 states and the District of Columbia. The 13 states, there's a small sliver in North Carolina, but the rest of the states are north of Virginia. So it's us, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, you kind of work up the states, New Jersey, etc., Delaware, Maryland. And PJM balances this regional grid to make sure that the lights stay on for everyone in all those states.
Yeah.
And
So is it like if a power plant in Pennsylvania is producing too much power for whatever that local need is, they can actually send some of that power to Virginia?
they do, and they are today. I mean, Pennsylvania, thank God, is a huge exporter of energy. If they stopped exporting, you and I are in trouble.
Yeah.
So West Virginia's a big exporter, Pennsylvania's a big exporter. That's exactly how it works. Some states are exporting. The majority of the states are importing power, like Virginia,
Right.
And we have that grid. But it's also, if a state happens to make policy decisions that take down baseload power and less power ends up on the grid, that puts states that import a lot of the power in a very difficult situation to keep the lights on.
Right.
And that's so when PJM came out, and they've literally said that the PJM region is at risk of rolling blackouts, and as we start looking out a few years, 4 years, 7 years, because there will not be enough power for states to import as much as they're importing today, which sends a huge signal to us in Virginia that we better get the policies right here and flip some of this
We
stuff.
need more generation.
We need a lot more generation, and it's got to be the right generation. I mean, look, the governor does believe all the above. We do need all the above, but when we say we need to keep the lights on, once again, we're talking peak hours, 4 to 8. Once again, sun's not up right now. So it's got to be things like natural gas. It's got to be nuclear. It's got, and there's going to come a time where you and I can say, okay, and batteries can do it too. It's just we don't have very many batteries and they're not big enough. But there will be a time where we say, okay, we have the battery storage or other energy storage projects.
Right. We've
that can help with that.
diversified, and we actually have met certain cost curve realities.
Yes.
So,
But one thing people need to keep in mind: battery storage is not a power generation source. It's a storage source.
yes, of course.
So it doesn't matter whether you power with gas or you power with solar. It's a storage, not a generation piece.
So we just talked about the difference, what's cheaper right now. And so let's now throw nuclear into the conversation, because, I mean, we had a ton of innovation in nuclear in the 60s, the 70s, and it's almost like the industry just stopped.
Yes.
But if you go to these nuclear conferences now across the country, I know you've talked at a bunch of them, Glenn. I mean, there's billions of dollars that's going into this industry again. And you're seeing that it's not just the same, what's called an AP1000, which is that huge nuclear power plant, the Simpson style reactor. They're actually these small modular reactors. They're 1/40th the size of a traditional nuclear power plant. There's actually no risk of a nuclear meltdown. So there's all kinds of benefits and opportunities in this next generation of nuclear. So what's the challenge? I mean, is nuclear cheaper than these other sources? Do we still have to wait for some of that to happen, those benefits to materialize? I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I think nuclear, as we look out 10 years, we're going to see a lot of these first of a kind advanced reactors coming online. Probably 2030, 2032 at the earliest. It's going to provide initially, the electricity is not going to be the cheapest electricity, but where it's going to fill are these data centers and large energy, advanced manufacturing data centers, those entities that can afford the higher prices because they depend more on reliability. And that's going to, then having the order book come around will get us to what we call nth of a kind. As you build more, prices come down. And we're going to see them come down where they will start powering homes like yours and mine. But the first small modular reactors will not power people's homes because the cost of electricity will be higher than the traditional cost of, let's say, natural gas.
So, but that's the innovation cost curve.
Right.
Let's talk about, so those are small modular reactors. But what about just a traditional nuclear power plant? Because there's a horror story in the industry. It's called Vogtle.
Yep.
Right, in Georgia or something.
Georgia, yes, yeah,
Georgia.
Yes.
And everyone refers to how the project got finished, but it was the cost overruns were astronomical.
2x, yes.
It like bankrupted the utility.
Well, it bankrupted the company.
The company that was building the power plant. And so why haven't we seen more nuclear, even just the traditional nuclear, not even the small modular reactors? What's the issue been? Has it been cost? Is it regulation? Is it the NRC?
Well, back in the day, we were up to a point. I think the last reactor was built in the 70s, early 80s, something like that. I mean, you had 3 Mile Island, and that stopped a lot of things in their tracks, right? Yeah, that there was a false start not long after that. We thought nuclear would start back up again, and it didn't. And but what's really brought it up this time is one, the power curve. I mean, we're seeing Virginia has 6.5% year-over-year growth in the energy demand that we're foreseeing. And that is, and to put that in perspective, over the next 10 years, we're going to need to double our power generation in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
That's incredible.
And so how do we do that? And small modular reactors are the perfect avenue to do
so
this.
It's just the demand, the amount of demand that's happening through the market today is just so fundamentally different than what we've seen 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Because the rate of energy demand growth in Virginia 5 years ago was 1% to 2%.
Yeah, 1% to 2%.
But now it's 6%.
Yeah, and part of it is obviously data centers. Now, part of it is back in those days, economic growth was zero. More people were leaving the state than coming to the state. Under Governor Youngkin, now we have more people coming to the state. You know better than I do.
$156 billion of net new capital investment.
And all that capital needs new energy.
Yep.
And then we still are the data center capital of the world. Over 70% of all the traffic over in the U.S. or in the world comes through Virginia.
And the projects are getting bigger.
Yes.
And the demands of AI, I mean, it's just through the roof
yes.
in terms of power, cooling, all the things that happen at a data center. All right, so we've talked about the stack of energy sources, what's out in the market, where's innovation going towards, and things like small modular reactors, and also just the how the economy is changing, right?
Yes.
Data centers, AI, et cetera. So let's now finish our conversation with really a focus on Virginia and the challenges. And I've talked about this quite a bit in the videos that I've done to the economic development community. One of the biggest challenges that we have is the fallout from a law that was passed in 2020.
Yes.
Called the Virginia Clean Economy Act.
Yes.
And what this law did, it did a lot of things, but it created these mandates, ideological mandates, where, for example, by 2035, 50% of our energy generation has to come from wind and solar. It would require natural gas power plants, coal power plants to actually be decommissioned.
By 45.
By 2045. It's already adding costs to what's called the rate base, which is what we all pay in our power bills every single month. And so when you look at the numbers, and this is really what's upsetting to me, and I know to the governor, and especially when everyone in politics is hyper-focused on this concept of affordability, right? I mean, elections just happened across the country, and the word du jour, was affordability. And so when you look at what's happened over the last 5 years in Virginia, our power costs haven't decreased. They've increased considerably.
Yes.
They've increased more than 35% over the last 5 years.
Yep.
That's actually 2 times the rate of inflation.
Mhm.
And so power customers, consumers are hurting. They're getting
Yes.
squeezed. And then when you kind of dig in even more, that's about $42-ish, $43 a month more that folks are paying compared to 5 years ago.
Yep.
So almost $500 a year. And when you go even further into the conversation, and this is what's really upsetting, about 50% of that increase is directly attributable to the law that was passed in 2020, the
Yes.
Virginia Clean Economy Act.
Yep. What we call the Renewable Portfolio Standard, RPS.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And so I think most of us that are follow common sense and are level-headed can say that VASIA is not working.
Right.
It's increasing costs, and we need to pivot away from VASIA.
Yes.
And so, can we talk a little bit about why VASIA is not working, and what's in this 50% component
Well,
of the increase in power costs attributable to the RPS?
yes. Well, first to understand, VASIA, Virginia Clean Economy Act, was written in 2020, the beginning of session,
Right.
with 2,000 other bills. It was never modeled. It was never tested. No work was done. It was changed 4 times during a 60-day session and then voted on and passed on a party line vote, basically,
Yeah.
by a party. And no work was ever done. No due diligence, no studies or anything. It was a soundbite bill that basically got passed.
People just wanted to get the bona fides of,
Yes,
I
clean.
passed a clean energy bill,
100%.
but didn't understand the ramifications
Yes.
of passing terrible policy.
Now, so I will say it was a bad policy in 2020 regardless. But one thing that Republicans or Democrats realized is that we were going to go from 1 to 2% year-over-year energy demand in 2020 to 6.5% where we are
6%.
today.
Yes.
That bill, whether it was good or bad, doesn't matter. It was built for a time that is completely different than where we are today. And it can't solve today's problems. In the Department of Energy, we modeled the energy plans and energy opportunities for Virginia. And we brought in an internationally recognized firm to do this. There is no model that exists that allows us to keep up with the VASIA mandates and still keep the lights on in Virginia. It cannot happen.
Okay, so let's say that again, because I know that it's not just Republicans that
No.
watch these videos.
Yep.
We've got a great bipartisan audience. So let's say that one more time when it comes to this terrible bill called the Virginia Clean Economy Act.
So we brought in an international firm to help model different opportunities and different policy plans. There is no model that exists that can be compliant with the Virginia Clean Economy Act mandates and still keep the lights on in Virginia over the next 10 to 15 years.
And you also were very generous in that model.
Yes.
Because didn't you, for example, include nuclear?
Yes.
Even though, according to the Virginia Clean Economy Act, nuclear is not part of the 50% mandate.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah. It's not the nuclear RPS. Yep.
It's
it
not.
looks different.
So right now it's only wind and solar, even though nuclear is carbon emission free.
Right.
Right? We're not
Yep.
pumping. I mean, everyone's concerned about carbon dioxide. The nuclear doesn't pump that into the atmosphere.
Right.
And so the not funny, the ridiculous thing about this law that was passed is they didn't even include nuclear in the conversation. Right. And so what? They wanted to decommission nuclear, I guess. I guess that was the only conclusion. But even with you all adding nuclear as a component, wasn't it that you had to build like 12 nuclear power plants a year?
Well,
or something
what was interesting is
but this is the absurdity of this law.
Well, and this is what's crazy because there's a commission, electric commission basically, and Dominion has to do an IRP every year, which is kind of their plan for the next 15 years, right? And they were mandated to do a plan compliant with VASIA.
Yes.
And so they have this plan that I think it's 2 SMRs every year starting in 2032. Which you and I both know the supply chain doesn't exist.
Yep.
We both know the balance sheet's not going to be able to absorb for the utility. And if you ask the utility, I'm pretty sure they'll tell you there's not a chance on God's green earth they can comply. They can actually follow that plan they were forced to build. I mean, literally, this political commission forced Dominion to do a plan made of unicorns and fairy dust, so they can actually say, "Look, we have a plan."
You were in politics before, right?
I was. Well, it just annoys me that we have someone forced to go through an exercise that they will sit there and tell you they can't execute on. Yes.
So when you look at your power bill, because all of these things, the craziness of some of these ideas, ideological kind of initiatives, they all translate and they all kind of come down and condense to your monthly power bill.
Yes.
Right. And when you're looking at the rate base, what's being layered in there that's increasing the cost of our power right now.
So over half of the increase in costs, the renewable portfolio standards that you mentioned earlier,
They're
right?
tied to VSEA.
Tied to VSEA,
Yeah.
right? So you've got a couple things in there. You've got the renewable energy credits, the forced mandate to buy this by utilities. You talked about that in a prior video, right?
Yes.
It's just these digital certificates that they have to buy that doesn't help you, me, or anyone else in Virginia.
Because they were what the law was trying to do was force Dominion to essentially build more solar. And if they didn't build more solar, they would have to go out and buy this credit or this certificate
Right.
that some other solar project
In another state.
received
Right.
because they built solar.
Right.
So it's kind of this market of
Right.
credits or certificates that people can buy.
That get passed on all to the ratepayers.
But the problem is so even oh man, this is just so ridiculous because the way that the law was written was that okay, you're penalizing a Dominion or an AEP for not doing that,
Right.
but then Dominion is able to pass that cost directly to the ratepayer, right? So to the customer, or the consumer. So they're not actually getting penalized because if it was a penalty, they'd have to eat the cost.
Right.
They're just able to completely layer it into someone's bill.
Right. And so, what motivation do they have to change when they're not being penalized?
Yeah, they're not the ultimate payer.
Yeah. And so,
so it's schemes like that.
Yes, that are doing it.
What about what else is layered in there? Like the cost of building
the wind. Wind. So, the forced cost of building wind, which you're talking about, $10 billion for a gigawatt. It's about 5 to 10 times more expensive than, let's say, a nuclear or a gas plant that does a gigawatt.
So you're saying that if the current project out by Virginia Beach, it's going to be $10 billion wind project, that's only producing a gigawatt of energy. If I were to get a gigawatt of energy from a natural gas power plant, it's 5 to 10 times less.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing about this. So usually the SEC has to. You have to go to the utilities, go to the SEC, and the SEC
the State
decides.
Corporation Commission.
Yes, and they decide what's in the best interest of the public. The only way we have wind today was the General Assembly took that out of the SEC's hands. It declared that wind was in the public interest. So the SEC, there's kind of a three-legged stool they look at to approving energy projects. They pretty much pulled the financial piece out of the SEC's hands.
So it just made it a pet project.
Right, because there's no way on God's green earth that the SEC would have approved that wind project because of the cost if the General Assembly did not basically exempt it as a public in the public interest.
So all of these alternatives that are being forced upon the utilities they have to build actually cost more than just doing the right thing, which is finding kind of the most reliable, affordable options for energy generation.
Best option. I mean, the SEC was put in place to protect the ratepayers, and literally the General Assembly took them out of it.
Completely took them out of it.
Okay. And I want to jump on one more thing here because the way you went, when we talk about penalties on Dominion, the pass-through, I mean, Reggie, there's a conversation.
So because we got out of Reggie.
Yes.
But now they're going to put us back in.
There's a conversation that next General Assembly session, they'll put us back in the Reggie.
So what is Reggie?
Okay, so Reggie is kind of a cap and trade. Basically, you're going to penalize utilities based on their emissions of CO2.
Okay.
And it's a penalty based on that utilities get hit with, except that every dollar they get hit with it gets passed on to the ratepayers. And right now,
so again, they're not actually getting penalized.
Right.
For not having clean energy sources.
And we're estimating that it'll be $500 million a year to the ratepayers if we went back in the Reggie now.
So
it was over $680 billion.
So that's going to increase our energy bills even more.
Yes.
If that gets and you'll see it on your energy bill. It's called a Reggie rider, RGGI rider on there.
As long as they still let it be on there, the General Assembly can say roll that in, and Dominion will have to roll it in, and
then you won't see it on there. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Politicians are sneaky like that, right? So all right. So that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But this has real world impact. It's directly affecting people's monthly power bills. And then what frustrates me is then people say, oh, it's the data center's fault, or oh, it's the business's fault. I mean, yes, no one could have planned for the scale of AI investment that's happening. But again, I've always said this: it's government usually gets in the way. Government needs to get out of the way.
Yes. And there was a study just recently done last year by JLARC, which is an entity that does it. And they said that data centers are paying their fair share. Now, it's up to the governor and the General Assembly to make sure they do. But those increases that you've been talking about, that isn't data center involved. That isn't because of, large loads. That is because, as you've notated, over half of that increase is because of the RPS, compliance costs.
Wow. That's incredible. So I think it's fair to say that government does a really bad job of picking winners and losers, right?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So we're going to end on that note. I mean, we talked about so much what the future of energy generation. Well, what's the current state? What the future looks like?
Yep.
What are the challenges that we have in Virginia? And I think ultimately, the power conversation, we have to have just a common sense, practical conversation about what actually works and what doesn't work. Yes, idealism is nice in some parts of politics,
Right.
but when it comes down to keeping the lights on, I think we have to be very practical. And I think that's one of the so many reasons why I'm so proud to work for the Youngkin administration. But Governor Youngkin has just been so practical about
Yes.
where our energy strategy needs to go. So, Glenn, thank you so much for
And
your time.
thank
I know
you.
it's taken us a while to do this. Really appreciate you coming on, and we're looking forward to keep fixing things.
Same here.
So here we go.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, sir.